the next chapter, what are the things that spoil or damage the ihram, and what is permissible for a person to do while in the state of ihram. The Shaykh says, it is not permissible for a person in the state of ihram, after entering the ihram by intention, whether male or female, is not permissible to cut any hair, any nails, or to apply any perfume. It is also not permissible for men specifically to wear clothes that shape the body, meaning like shirts, trousers, so on and so forth, jackets. This is not allowed. And this is often translated as stitched garments. And it's very important to note here, because a lot of people begin to ask this question of stitched garments, because the word in Arabic being used is makhit, and makhit literally means stitched. So people begin to think that, oh, if there is a stitch on my ihram, then this is not allowed. If there are stitches on my sandals, this is not allowed. But that is not what's intended in the Arabic. The Arabic that's being referred to, al-makhit, means clothing that has been stitched according to a person's body parts, meaning a jacket with sleeves, a shirt, trousers. This is what is intended by a stitched garment. Okay, so I think a more accurate term might be tailored. A tailored garment. That might be an accurate way, but then somebody might start asking questions, well, if it wasn't tailored and if it was ready-made. So what's important here that we know that a person removes, a man, the males remove all forms of clothing, and they only wear these two sheets, as well as their shoes. So Shaykh Ibn Baz clarifies, said it's not permissible therefore to wear a shirt or a vest or trousers or khufs or socks, unless a person didn't have a lower garment, meaning the izar, then in that case they're allowed to wear trousers or sirwal. And if they didn't have shoes which are below the ankles, it's permissible in that case to wear khufs, and they do not have to cut the khufs. They can wear them as they are. This is because in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, from the hadith of Ibn Abbas, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever does not find shoes, na'layn, yesterday we just translated them as sandals or slippers, but they can include shoes which go below the ankles, which are worn below the ankles. Whoever doesn't have a na'layn is the Arabic word, then that person can wear khuffayn, meaning khufs, which is the leather sock. And whoever doesn't have a lower garment, izar, they can wear the sarawil. This is in Bukhari and Muslim. So a person, he wears the alternative until they have the opportunity to correct or rectify the situation. The Sheikh speaks about this issue of cutting the khufs, because there is an authentic hadith that when the Prophet ﷺ was in Medina and he was asked about a person who doesn't have footwear which go below the ankle, he ﷺ said they wear khufs, but they should cut them to below the ankle. However, when the Prophet ﷺ gave the khutbah of Arafah during Hajj, he gave permission for the people to wear khufs, and he didn't mention cutting them. And it's not permissible for the Prophet ﷺ, as the scholars explain, to delay explaining something while the people are in need of it. So the scholars of Islam said that since the Prophet ﷺ, in Medina he said you should cut them, and in Arafah, which is after being in Medina, meaning during Hajj, he said you can wear khufs, and he didn't mention cutting them, that means that this cutting ruling is now abrogated, and it has been overruled by the wearing khufs in the case where a person does not have any other form of footwear to wear which goes below the ankle. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. What is permissible for the muhrim muhrim to do, the person in ihram, is to wear khufs if that's what he had, to wear them if they are below the ankles. He's allowed to do that because they become similar to the ordinary footwear which is below the ankles. It's also permissible to tie the lower garment with a belt, or with a string, or with a rope, or tie it into a knot, because there is no proof forbidding that. What is also permissible is for the person in ihram to take a bath, or to wash their head, or to scratch their head if they needed to do so, but lightly and softly. Yet if any hair fell out because of that, then there's nothing wrong with that, and nothing upon them to do. It is impermissible, the Shaykh said, for the woman who is in ihram to wear a garment on her face which takes the shape of her face, like, for example, the burqa or the niqab. Neither is it permissible for her to wear gloves, because the Prophet ﷺ said, a woman should not wear the niqab, neither should she wear gloves. This hadith is in Bukhari. And although it is permissible to wear anything else, any other tailored or stitched garments, whether it's a shirt, or whether it's a sirwal, or whether it's khufs or socks, all of that is permissible. It's also permissible for a woman to drape a cloth over, or to drape her khimar over her face, if she needs to do that, as long as she hasn't tied it down and fastened it. And there's nothing also wrong with the khimar touching her face. There's no objection to that. And this is known from the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha. She said that when the riders would pass by us while we were with the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the riders would be passing by us when we were with the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they became level with us, then we would drape our jilbabs from our heads over our faces, and when they passed us, then we would uncover our faces. This hadith is in the Sunan of Abu Dawood and Ibn Majah, and Ad-Daraqutni, he collects the hadith of Salama similar to this. It is also, the Shaykh says, permissible for a woman to cover her hand with a cloth, meaning draping cloth over her hands. And it's important and an obligation, the Shaykh said, for women to cover their faces and to cover their hands when they are in the presence of non-mahram men, because they are considered to be awra. The women are considered to be awra, where they need to be covered. And because Allah Ta'ala said in the Quran, وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ إِلَّا لِبُعُولَتِهِنَّ, and they should not make apparent their adornment except to their husbands. This ayah is ayah 31 in Surah An-Nur. And without a doubt, the Shaykh said, the face and the hands of the woman are the most important parts of her adornment. The face, more specifically, is the greatest part of a woman's adornment. And Allah Ta'ala said in the Quran, in Surah Al-Ahzab, ayah 53, وَإِذَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُنَّ مَتَاعًا فَاسْأَلُوهُنَّ مِنْ وَرَاءِ حِجَابٍ ذَلِكُمْ أَطْهَرُ لِقُلُوبِكُمْ وَقُلُوبِهِنْ. When you ask them, meaning the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, for anything, then ask them from behind a veil that is purer for your hearts and for their hearts. The Shaykh says, as for what some women have become used to doing, is that they fasten something around their heads under the khimar, so that the khimar is raised or kept at a distance from the face. There is no basis for this according to our knowledge. And if this was something that was needed, the Prophet ﷺ would have clarified it and would have explained it. Further, the Shaykh says, it's permissible for a person in ihram, man or woman, to wash their clothes that they are using in ihram if they become dirty. And if they want to change them altogether, then they are also allowed to do that. What is not permissible during ihram is to use saffron, in Arabic known as za'fran, or use this other plant called al-wars, which is another a plant which has a dye to it, somewhat similar to turmeric, but not exactly turmeric. And the Prophet ﷺ forbade both of those things, as occurs in the hadith of Abdullah Ibn Umar. Also, it is an obligation upon the person in ihram to abandon all forms of sins and argumentation and illicit behavior, as well as permissible acts, or ordinarily permissible acts of intimacy with your spouse. Allah Ta'ala said in the Quran, الحج أشهر معلومات فمن فرض فيهن الحج فلا رفث ولا فسوق ولا جدال في الحج. Hajj is in the well-known months, so whoever embarks upon the journey of Hajj, then they must not engage in intimacy with their spouses, or illicit actions, or open sinning, transgression, and argumentation during Hajj. Also, the Prophet ﷺ was authentically reported to have said, whoever performs Hajj and avoids intimacy with their spouse and does not sin and transgress would return like the day that his mother gave him birth. And the meaning of a rafath, the Shaykh says, is intimacy with a person's spouse, as well as other illicit actions and evil statements and actions. And fusuq means sins. Al-jidal refers to argumentation upon falsehood that has no benefit. And the word jidal, however, if it occurs in an ayah where if you are admonishing someone and you need to use stronger terms in order to get the truth across, then this is not impermissible during Hajj, as Allah Ta'ala, rather this is commanded. As Allah Ta'ala said in the Quran, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'idati al hasana wajadilhum billati hi ahsan." Call to the way of your Lord with wisdom and beautiful preaching, and argue with them. The word jadilhum, jidal, same word. Argue with them in ways which are best. Meaning, if the wisdom didn't work and beautiful preaching then was turned to, and that didn't work, then the stronger form of argumentation would be employed at that stage. What is impermissible upon the male mahram is to cover his head, meaning placing something directly on his head to cover it, for example, a hat or a turban or a scarf. This is not allowed. And similar to this is covering the face. It's also impermissible. And the proof for this is the Prophet ﷺ commanding the companions to avoid covering the head and the face of the companion who died falling off his animal on the day of Arafah. Where one of the companions, he died during Arafah, on the Arafah day, and the Prophet ﷺ said, wash him with water and with sidr, and shroud him in his two garments, meaning his ihram garments. Do not cover his head and do not cover his face, because he will be resurrected Yawm al-Qiyamah pronouncing the talbiyah. And this hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim. However, as for using an umbrella or taking any other form of shade, like being inside a car or a bus, or using a tree or a tent, all of this is permissible, because the Prophet ﷺ, he took shade. He was provided shade during the day when he was performing the rami, which is throwing the pebbles at the pillars on the day of Eid, at the pillar of Jamrat al-Aqaba. The Prophet ﷺ, when he went to stone, they had covered him with a cloth above his head. And also on the day of Arafah, the Prophet ﷺ had a tent placed for him, pitched for him in Namira, just outside Arafah, and the Prophet ﷺ went into that tent that morning. So this shows that the permissibility of these things. It is impermissible for both men and women in Ihram to hunt animals, to hunt game which are on land. And it's also impermissible to help somebody else. While you are in Ihram, you cannot even help someone else hunt. Neither is it allowed for you to distract the animal in order to cause it to leave the boundaries of the haram so that you can hunt it. That's not permissible for the person in the state of Ihram. It's also not permissible to perform nikah, meaning to get married while you're in a state of Ihram. It's also not permissible to conduct somebody else's marriage. Neither is it permissible to ask for somebody's hand in marriage while you are in Ihram. The Prophet ﷺ said, لا ينكح المحرم ولا ينكح ولا يخطب. This hadith is in Sahih Muslim. The Shaykh, Rahimahullah, he said if a person forgot and he ended up wearing some tailored garments or some stitched garments, or he ended up covering his head, or he applied perfume, all of this was through forgetfulness or not knowing the ruling, then there's nothing upon that person to do. There's no penalty applied to that person. The person just removes those things as soon as he remembers or as soon as he realizes or knows the ruling. And the same for the person who accidentally or forgetfully, unknowingly shaved their hair or cut some of their hair or cut their nails forgetfully or unknowingly or not knowing that the ruling, there is no penalty upon that person according to the correct opinion. The Shaykh then concludes this section by saying it is impermissible for those in Ihram or not in Ihram, for both men and women, to hunt game or to help others hunt animals, or to kill those animals by yourself, slaughter those animals, or point to an animal inside the boundaries of the haram. It is also impermissible to cut trees in the haram boundaries, the leaves of which are still green. It's also impermissible to pick up a lost item unless the person is going to stand and make it known to the people, asking them whose this is. For that purpose it's permissible. This is all found in the authentic hadith of Bukhari and Muslim, that the Prophet ﷺ said, indeed this town, meaning Makkah, is protected, it has sanctity and it has been given sanctity by Allah until day of resurrection. Its branches are not to be broken. Its game animals are not to be shooed, meaning to be moved out of the haram area, and neither are its green branches or leaves to be cut. Neither should any lost item be picked up except for a person who's going to make it known to the people in order for that person to be able to find it. And the Shaykh explains the meaning of the words in that hadith at that stage. And he says that this includes the area of Mina as well as Muzdalifah. However, it does not include the area of Arafah, because that is outside of the haram boundary.